Welcome, everyone. And today we have a very special episode because I am finally back from the maternity leave. And even though my baby is only 3 months, I feel that it is time to resuming conversations and resuming interviews. So we are going to be talking about going back to work when you are a mama. First time mama, second time mama, third time mama. How do you manage that? What is the option so that you can bring it all together and be the most brilliant self? Our guest today is Jiezhen, and we met through Mama Circles. We have been doing mindful mamas walking and talking a lot just about life and kids and families and, of course, business and professional side, because we all have that side too. So she's a coach and just like me, she works with conscious leaders and she helps them basically to become the best version of themselves so that they can create conscious businesses, lead conscious organizations, and fundamentally to create a more conscious society. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Yeah, thank you for having me. I think it's a very timely topic for both of us. There's a lot of attention given to pregnant women, mothers on that initial part of their journey, but the transitions in between, right? How do we continue to find our flow and to find our ease as we navigate these new changes and new seasons and new chapters of life?
Absolutely. Your daughter is 3 and 3-month-old boy. How does it feel right now coming back into the professional environment?
Yeah, I think for me, it feels becoming a parent of 2 actually felt very easeful. I think knowing that I've done this before, I think that added confidence. And at the same time, it's completely new too, meeting, our son for the first time. He has been absolutely wonderful, but he is his own person. And, finding our flow too as a family of 4 now has been also definitely a time of evolution and learning and growth for all of us, myself definitely included. And then we're very grateful for, I think, how birth has been, how like that postpartum period has been. But similar to you, I know our babies are 3 months now, and I probably could have chosen to wait a bit longer, but it felt really right, actually. I think like for me, it's very important to tune into when it feels aligned, and it did feel right and aligned to be emerging out into the world again now that we've kind of completed that first 100 days and that 4th trimester and starting to ease back into the world again, not full steam ahead, I would say, but finding a rhythm that works for us right now. And I think that's really key as, parents and mothers in particular return to work.
Absolutely. So when my daughter was literally just a few weeks, I remember looking at her and thinking to myself, will I ever go back to work? And I even had this conversation with my husband. I'm like, honey, do you mind if I take 1 year off and I'm not going to do anything? I'm going to be with the baby because I'm not sure I would want to actually do that. It would feel like I would force myself, and I'm not sure I want to leave her alone and I want to be there all the time. And it's just amazing how things are changing every day. And now here we are a few months later, and I'm like, yeah, I'm going back into the professional world. It's so exciting. And the baby is doing amazing, but also it's just beautiful how it changes. How was it for you?
I did my master's in leadership and organizations. And one of my professors who's at the Harvard Kennedy School, her name is Barbara Kellerman. She does a lot of work in women and leadership. And I remember when I found out I was expecting my daughter, I had a call with her and I asked her, like, how did you do it, right? Like, how did you have this amazing career and raise 2 children and do all the things that you did? She said, we don't give ourselves enough time to actually consider the physiological changes, the emotional changes, the mental changes that happen when a woman gives birth to a child and how to accommodate that. A lot of people think they just go back. They just go back to the work that they were doing before and just return to whatever was before. But no, we have evolved. Our lives have evolved. We have a new human being that we are caring for. Our family situation has evolved. And if we don't give ourselves enough of that time and space to really allow that evolution to take place, we discount a lot of what is possible and that full potential that actually can blossom in this new stage of life and this new chapter.
There's a lot of truth in that. It just not only professionally, but you said it's not just a biological shift. It's also mental, emotional, spiritual in all ways. And now even I feel when I look at people at the moment, I perceive them differently than I have had before I became a mother. So of course, and when we go into the workplace, I actually feel everything changes. Nothing is the way how it used to be.
Nothing is the same. And to expect, I think, particularly women to go back to whatever they were doing before in the same way, shape, and form is almost unrealistic, and sets us up for failure. I think we want to set ourselves up to thrive, right? And not just survive as we re-enter this professional world. And that's what I do a lot with my clients, actually, is to support them in creating their own, what I call a playbook, right? I run this thing called a possibility playbook, and finding possibilities in creating this playbook in this new season of life. And that's something I think I'm doing for myself now as I plan my return to work as well, and to figure out what works for right now. So what my professor said was to, if you can, right after when you have a baby, to give yourself the time and space to decide what to do next. Because some people like to plan very far ahead, right? We like to have our 10 years ahead, and to feel like we've set ourselves on that path, but to give ourselves that time and space to really take a step back and reflect on, is this still working for me? Is this still something that I can continue doing this way, or does something have to change? What has to change? And to give ourselves that time and space, not because we have already made plans, but to give ourselves that grace to allow plans to evolve as well. Which is why we call it a playbook, right? It's not a fixed plan, but a playbook that can evolve.
I love that. And I'm just curious to hear, how is it for you, and what shifts in your perception has been happening? For me, maybe before, I found I would give my time more easily, or maybe even more generously to people, or maybe I would agree to projects where I would feel half-heartedly involved. Not 100% I really want to do this, but I kind of have time, and maybe for whatever, fear, guilt, or trying to be nice, I would say yes. And now I look at this with entirely different eyes. I have been evaluating each project, and I have several of them that I'm doing. And I think it's particularly for those who are entrepreneurs, maybe if you go back into the company, into role that company has been holding for you while you're on the maternity leave, you have to figure out how to wear back sort of the same hat, even though you're a different person. But then if you are an entrepreneur, like I am, and I feel also like you are, then you also need to assess your entire business and how you're going to be doing it forward. And so for me, I was looking at each part of what I'm doing and asking myself, is it really worth of my time away from my daughter? Can I outsource it, right? Can I delegate it?
No, I think becoming a parent is a very clarifying process. It really tells you what is really important to you and to us, and it also tells us what maybe we can put aside for a while. I do have my own practice with the Possibly Playbook that I have my clients, and my journey has been a lot about. I used to feel very torn with my daughter when she was first born. I was like, I want to be with her, and I want to be a present parent, and I want to be with her all the time. And I think I feel very lucky to have work that I love deeply and care about and find a lot of meaning, and and the fact that I can create the impact that I want to have in the world. I feel like I want to do this, and I felt like I was being pulled in two directions, right? I felt very torn for quite a while, actually, when she was first born, as I thought about my return to work, which I had, thankfully, I could decide when I wanted to go back. It was a question I was considering even before she was born, what our lives would look like, is to find what that both and looks like, right? How can I be both, instead of being, I can either be a parent or I can have my career and my ambition and my dreams. It's how do I find space for the both and provides me a lot of meaning and fulfillment. And while being that, being there for the big day, the big moments and the small moments with my children, and creating space for both. But I think it requires me to also take a step back and ask myself what's possible, because it's not just doing what has been done before, So my mother was, a full-time stay-at-home mom, and I think she was a great mother. So in my head, that was who I had to be. I was like, do I have to just stop working completely, right? And be there with my children day in, day out, 100%. And I tried that for a little bit with my daughter, and I was like, I don't know if this is for me. Because I do get a lot of meaning and purpose from the work that I do outside in the world. And, with my mother-in-law, for instance, she worked growing up, and was still very present for my husband. So that gave me a bit of like inspiration to think of what other possibilities out there I haven't considered. And it's really about creating those prototypes, right? So that's what we do when I work with my clients in creating their playbooks. And sometimes it's not about parenting, sometimes it's about other topics, but it's often about creating possibility prototypes, we call them, where we test out what is possible, right? Because sometimes it's just an idea, and sometimes that's what creates the overwhelm, when it's like, oh, all these things that could be possible. But when we actually test things out, which is what I'm doing right now. So I'm like, okay, what would it be like if I chose to start maybe, so I spoke with my, with the management of, one of the companies I'm working with. And, I said, what would it be like if I came back like maybe 2 days a week first, right? And like started with that. And it allows me to kind of say like, okay, is this working? Do we need to dial up, dial back? But to give myself that space and to ask for what I need as well, ask for the support I need, right? As I transition and navigate this new chapter for myself as well.
That's actually exactly what I'm doing right now. But I'm my own boss. So I told myself, right, what about if I just start going 2-3 days a week? So for me, it's about that 2.5-3 days that I am doing the work right now, and checking how does it feel? And exactly what you said at the beginning, that feeling of, am I there enough for my daughter? Can I do this? Is she going to be okay? Other people, can take a care, which is good enough. Can I trust them? But then also, once that all settled, and I feel when I deal with my own insecurities and fears around other people capabilities to take care of my baby, which maybe first-time moms often have, I would think so. And then just arriving at that space when you realize that actually, yes, it is absolutely possible. And then I just also notice right now, every time when I do something professionally or do something for myself outside of just being a mom, it actually gives me much more energy and purpose than to go back and see my daughter.
I think one of my mentors also told me that, like, when you go back after having a baby, see it as my me time. If we're lucky enough to have work that we love and that we care about, I think it's almost something you're doing to fill your cup.
So in my experience, just being with the baby, and I heard it also from other people, babies want us to be present 100%. I mean, they are the best teachers when we talk everything related to mindfulness or just be a here and now. I mean, they want your attention 100% in the moment. Like even when my daughter was, 1 week or 2 weeks old, and I tried to breastfeed her or just hold her in my arms and take a phone and, do a food delivery, she would start crying and complaining. Like she would be like, why are you taking your attention away from me? I am right here. And she is still like that. So when you're with her, she wants to be with her. That's it. You're doing conscious work. So you know that a really impactful presence actually requires a lot of energy. So I know one of the things that I do when I work with clients, we also often talk about is how do you generate enough energy in your body, physically, mentally, and emotionally. So you can be there for all of that without feeling drained or without experiencing burnout. And I just had this very funny sort of situation at home a few days ago where the baby woke up a bit earlier. So my husband, kind of was there also very early in the morning with her. And I left them for a few hours together. And then when I came back, he was like, how are you doing that? Day after day after day. It is so tiring. I spent 2 hours in the morning with the baby, doing everything the baby wants. That they haven't even started yet, and I feel already tired that I need a nap and a coffee. So now, how do you continue doing all of that? And you're also integrating so much professionally. And for me, it was very meaningful to hear from my husband, who said to me, I have so much respect for you for being able to do that.
Yeah, definitely. I think to be seen, I think that's what a lot of, us even as human beings are looking for, but particularly when we become parents and there's like this added that mental load they talk about, right? The mental and emotional load that particular a lot of mothers carry is to be seen, right? To be seen for the work that we are doing, the invisible work that sometimes, that we do as well. And I think that finding that support, right, and caregivers for people that can share that load is so important, whether that's a spouse or a partner or, family or helpers or whatever in way, shape or form. Finding to be seen in that and to find that support is so essential.
And just as you were sharing this, what I thought to myself for women who are listening to us, perhaps, if you're a man who happen to listen to us right now because you're just so enlightened and you really want to understand how your wife going to feel as she is about to go back to work when you just had a baby, then I guess one thing for sure, that your woman wants to be seen. And it's very important that you say it. It's important to communicate how much you appreciate things. You communicate, you acknowledge that she's a great mother. You remind her that she's a great mother, even if she might be not feeling always this way. You remind her that you still love her. You remind her that she's still very beautiful. That's also women often just get very insecure about bodies, right, in the postpartum for all variety of reasons and largely also social pressure. So I feel that just these expectations, just as you said, that there was a woman before having a baby, then she went through this extraordinary experience of creating a new life and birthing a new human being. And then the expectation of pretty much everyone else around that she's going to be just the same after, physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, professionally, while for her, everything has changed.
I think me stepping into this role has given me a lot more empathy for the parents that have come before me and how they've navigated this time. And also the people we work with, the people that, are, whether that's, professionally or maybe family around us as well, to create a more, because I think that's where it starts, right? Like, we need that support of the village, to navigate new times and that whole journey of matrescence, is huge, and something we don't talk about enough. But I think being able to come into the fullness of who we are, is determined by how fully we are able to be seen and heard in this newness of life as well.
As they say, it takes a village to raise a child. Mm-hmm. Now, just paraphrasing what you said, it takes a village to help a mother to fully embody the motherhood. And I'm just wondering why also there's maybe not enough conversation around that, at least from what I have seen around. Even though I must say in Singapore, I was surprised how much support mothers receive if you know where to look. Like if you don't know where to look, then it perhaps would feel very isolating and really difficult journey. And I know quite a few people who felt this way, that leads to all kind of complications after giving birth for both baby and the mother. But if you know where to look, if you know where to ask for support, there's actually an incredible conscious community that is specifically tailoring to help moms and becoming moms and already moms, to just navigate. And like even what you did, right, Jiezhen, you just created the Mindful Mamas walking group. This is what we have been doing. Yeah. And I have joined to some of those walks. And just the fact that you get out of the house with your baby and you see other moms and their babies of the same age, and you understood and seen, and you don't have to be anything in particular, but you can just be yourself and that accepted in the moment. It is incredibly supportive and healing.
Yeah, I think community is always really important, and sometimes we understate the importance of that when we are told that we can be strong and we can be independent, we can do it. Remembering that, it doesn't, I say, yes, it takes a village to raise a child, but it also takes a village to raise a mother. And forgetting sometimes that the mother is also new, is also a newborn in their own way. They're a new mother, right? They're doing this for the first time. When I created that Mindful Mamas group, it was really to create the community that I knew I wanted to have when I, because I raised my daughter she was born in the US. So coming back to Singapore, I was like, this is what I need here, because that was what supported me with my daughter there. And I want it to be accessible and available for other mothers too, to feel like they have someone else with them on their journey. There's no agenda or no, like, just to show up as they are. They don't have to be put together or anything. They don't have to have it all figured out. And I think that if we're talking about that return to work too, is to find that community, not only just personally, but professionally, maybe that they can support you in that as well.
I was just reflecting also on the work that I do with the coaching and speaking and just what has been happening right now in the community and the events that has been created and the topics that people have been discussing and who has been showing up there as a speaker. And let's say if I look even at a speakers list who has been invited and me there, and I look at the names and I'm like, okay, a man, woman with no kids, woman with no kids, woman with no kids, another man, and me. And I thought to myself, well, this is just interesting. Now I really understand much more what it takes for a mom to show up professionally, because on top of preparing all of that which you do professionally, let's say if you are preparing a presentation, let's say you're a speaker, you're preparing a keynote, you have to prepare the keynote, you have to practice it, you need to get yourself together, you have to think about your outfit because you tailor it for each audience, you have to think about your delivery. If you present in a different country, you think about how to include lines and stories which are relatable to people in this particular country, right? So you prepare all of this, but then now I feel also on the top of that, I have to think, okay, how do I breastfeed my daughter? How is she going to be sleeping? How are we going to be arranging this? How long can I be away? Right? So if I have to travel, how is that going to work? Am I bringing her with me? Then I have to give, somewhere a presentation.
There's so many more things to think about, right? And
exactly.
And that's what they call the mental load, right? It's not just doing the work well, but also figuring out everything around it to do that. But at the same time, it's going back to what you said earlier, right? It's a very clarifying time, because then we really say yes to things that that deeply resonate with us, and not the like, oh, I don't know if I should do this kind of thing. But it is beautiful what we can do. And I'm a big believer of including our children in our lives. I brought my daughter to, I facilitated and ran a summit, for women change makers it was a gender and climate action summit a couple of years ago when she was 18 months, I think, at that point. And she came along, and it was so wonderful to share that moment with her. Like when at Harvard, we had like a delayed commencement for my master's program that happened, I did graduate in the middle of the pandemic, and we couldn't do the whole walk across the stage, and my daughter came and walked across with me in 2022. So, there's so many beautiful ways that, sometimes I would think like, oh, how do I arrange things for my daughter, right? But to bring her into that space and for her to see her mother doing these things, she'll come to the office at the Korn Ferry office in Singapore and, hang out sometimes. And for her to see her mother doing that, I think is also such, inspiring opportunities for our children to see us in our fullest self.
I hear some of my friends saying, male friends who love their wives and really support their women. And let's say if they have kids and their wives also would like to work and do something professionally, and they feel that mother's guilt and they're tormented somewhat, right? How much do I want to stay home? How much do I want to be at work? And regardless of children age, whether they are 16 weeks or 16 years, they still feel it. And so interesting how, I had perception of men in that situation would be that when children grow up and they look at everything and they look at you as a woman, they will not only love you, they will also respect you for everything you have created as a professional, besides just being a mom to them. And I just always found it's also a very beautiful way to look at it, where just as you said, that your children then see you in action, they see you in your sweet spot and in your, with the more light in your eyes when you're doing what you love doing. And it also then inspires them to follow their dreams and do what they want. And I'm not a big sort of supporter of the phrase that you could have it all. To me, it's a little bit a misleading phrase. And I always find that, yes, you can have it all in the whole period of life, but I'm not sure you can have it all at once.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? There are always times to things.
Yeah. And I think it's, so my husband and I were actually talking about this a lot. I think it was last year. And what he said, which is actually quite poignant, was that you can have it all if you know what all means for right now. Right? Like what all means what your all means for you right now, because the all is evolving, right? To think that having it all is the same for your whole life, it's not. We go through different seasons and phases, and we have different needs and desires and wants, and to honor what is all for right now is like really brings us back to the present, right? So yeah, what does all mean for us, for me right now? Because we were talking about who really has it all, right? Something's got to give somewhere. We all have 24 hours in a day. So how do we really want to spend that time and that energy? So I think the question then is, what does all mean for me right now? And I think so. I do think you can have it all if we know what all means right now. Because I think when I first heard like, oh, you can't have it all, it felt like almost like a dampener on life, especially for those of us who want to lead like a very full, like 10 out of 10 life, right? Like, sounds like we can have it all, but only if we determine and decide what all means right now, we define what that means for ourselves. Then we can make plans around that, right? We can set up the support and the systems around to support what all looks for, right now. So for me right now is I want to be there with my family. I also want to continue to be able to do the work that I want to do. And my husband and I say, we are ambitious, that, we want great things for our work and our careers, but never at the expense of family, right? So how do we find that both end? And it might mean that maybe some other things in my life have to take a backseat right now. I used to volunteer a lot in community, and maybe that needs to take a little bit of a backseat. I don't get to see some of my friends as often as I used to, but to see them in a different way. So let's all get together with our kids now, things like, so the shape of things can evolve to fit what all means right now. But I think that first thing is to be clear on what having it all means for us in this moment, in this season, in this time of our lives, and be aware that can evolve and that can change too.
I love that. This is such a beautiful perspective. I remember a while ago, I saw somebody post, I think it was maybe on Instagram, one of the very, very well sort of followed and received blogger, a mommy blogger, who was talking about that this desire right now for women to have it all, which means to have a family, to have children, and to be professionally fulfilled. And then, of course, we add things like self-actualization, self-realization, volunteering work, traveling, philanthropy maybe, right? Or maybe some creative also pursuits. So that that now we can do that, and that we can create support structure to have it. In her words, creates distracted mothers. Like you said, your mom was a stay-at-home mom. Then you see that, okay, mom is always there. The question is how mom is present or not, but mom is always there. But then what that person said that, so now we have this whole communities or cultures or societies filled with women who are distracted moms because we won't have it all. And so what the impact it's going to have on our children. So what do you think about that?
Someone told me this, and I'm trying to remember who it was right now, but I think it was really what she said was to be where your feet are, right? Like, be where your feet are. When you are at work, you are present there, right? When you're with a client, right, you're 100% present with them. You're there. When you're children, you're present and you're there. I think the distraction comes from what I mentioned earlier is when we feel torn, like, I'm with my child, but I'm thinking about work, but I'm with work and I'm thinking about my child, and, I'm thinking about what's for dinner and all these things. And I think it's to create the systems for ourselves that we can be present, right? And obviously this takes work to set up. But when you set up the systems for yourself that allow you to really be present, then we are less distracted. And my mother was saying this the other day. She said, maybe it was easier when when she was raising us, because she didn't have phones, she didn't have social media, there were less technological distractions, but at the same time, there's always ways to be distracted, and there's always excuses, I guess, that we, that we can be like, oh, I have to do this and I have to do that. And so I do think it's really easy to be distracted. I find myself doing it. And, now my daughter is at an age where she can tell me like, Mama, no phone right now. Okay. Like, no. And I was like, and then I'm just like, oh yeah, you're right. I always say my children are my mindfulness bells. They remind me to be present. Like you're saying, even, our little babies, right? Before they can even, when they cry and call for our attention, it's a reminder to just be present, right? It doesn't mean we still need to function in the world. I still need to like Google map, how am I going to go to this place, or, respond to that WhatsApp message. But finding that time and that place for each thing, like, I think is something that I'm still working on, but to be where my feet are, right? Wherever I'm at, to choose to be present here and now. I think that's the mindfulness practice, right? To keep coming back to that present moment, to keep coming back to the person right in front of you. And I find that the same parenting as well. Like we're not going to be perfect all the time, and it's not about being a perfect parent, but about being a present parent. And when we are there, to be present, as much as possible. And to also give ourselves the grace when sometimes we just need a break and we just want to scroll Instagram for a bit, and that's okay too.
That's okay. Like yesterday, I haven't watched Netflix in a while now for the last few months because there was no time for this. But actually yesterday I'm like, okay, I'm going to take this 1.5 hours and I'm going to watch a movie, some kind of silly movie. I'm going to find now on Netflix and eat, my ice cream and coffee so that I can just have my me time. And this is it. I'm not going to work. No baby time. No wife time, no, anything other time, just silly me time. And that actually was very healing.
Yeah. And I think it's finding that me time. And when I first had my daughter, someone told me, she was like, even if you could take 5 minutes a day, right? 2 minutes a day, like to just have a moment for yourself, right? Just have a quiet sip of your tea or coffee, or, journal, meditate if you want, but doing something for you to fill your cup. And for us, even doing work is like, if you love your work, that's also me time.
Yeah, it fills your cup. Exactly. It's me time.
But finding ways to do that, and scheduling it in. So, our mindful mama walks actually came out of something I used to do for myself. I called them my mama care time, like Mondays. So I called them Mondays mama care time. So like at the beginning of the week, fill my cup. So I can be fully there for my child, for my work, everything, for my family throughout the week. And that was how like this mindful mama kind of emerged, because I was like, if I know I do this, right, I am setting myself up to be present for where I stand. So I'm less distracted, right? But I feel like if my cup is not filled, then I am very distracted, because I'm just like trying to juggle all the balls at once and not knowing what is a glass ball or a rubber ball. And I'm just feeling like my hands are full the entire time and not giving myself any time to pause, rest, and recharge. So I feel like that's important, because we want to play the long game, right? We want to be around for our families and in a state of, health mentally, emotionally, spiritually, so that we can be the parents you want to be the leaders you want to be the partners you want to be.
Absolutely. And as we're talking about having it all, and I just love your perspectives, on all of that. But also comes to me, it's about quality over quantity. It's exactly what you were saying, right? So that be where your feet are. So it's the quality that you put into this interaction or whatever it is you are doing, or that connection with the person. And perhaps if you're 100% fully present there, maybe that 1 hour of time becomes much more meaningful than 10 hours a day where you're all over the place or not fully there. And then that's also part, I do believe in mindful practices myself very much. And I know that this is also what mindfulness teaches, just to learning how to be that, right? So when we do this step by step, how can you be so present 24/7 that you are there as much as you can, for yourself, first of all, and then for other people. And that's why we do the practices. That's why we do meditations. And that's why we do those walks, so that we can just remind ourselves how to be here.
Yeah. And I think it's that quality of presence, right? And whenever we do feel pulled away, not to be harsh to ourselves, which can, I know I'm guilty of sometimes. I'll be like, oh, I wasn't present enough. And then that becomes a whole nother spiral. But to give ourselves grace, right? That we're not going to get it 100% all the time, but it's to that intention, right? To want to be present for the people that we love, to have that quality of presence. And to also know that children do need a lot of quantity as well. They do really cherish that time that we have together. And to figure out what works, right, for each family. I feel like there are so many philosophies and approaches and tools that different parents use, and to figure out what works for their family for that season of life right now, and not get caught in the forever trap is what someone told me. Not to feel like whatever setup you have right now is the perfect setup, and to know that it's going to evolve, just like how we're always evolving too.
I love that. And so today our conversation has been all about returning to work for moms, and just all the insights that, we have touched upon. I probably will have to go and listen myself again, because there was like a light bulb, going here, and here. It is really beautiful. And for moms, yes, and for moms who are about to go to work, or maybe, as you said, maybe you have your colleague who, just returned from the maternity leave. It's that kindness and compassion that really probably makes the biggest difference. That, yes, like women try and moms try, and we try our best. We try to be present. We try to be loving. We try to be professional. We try to take care of ourselves, or to take care of our children. We try to be good wives and daughters and sisters and everything else. And sometimes we fail. And it's okay. And so through all of this, just to have a bit more kindness and compassion. And perhaps if there are women like in your organization also who just finished their postpartum and they're coming back, just maybe giving also a little bit of the breather time, right? So don't have those expectations that, well, I remember her before she went on the maternity, she was 10 out of 10 in everything. Maybe now she's 9 out of 10 in most of the things. Mm-hmm. And it's okay. Give her some time to just figure it out and learn how she can, be what she wants to be and what is her, having it all in this moment. And then I just feel if we just have a bit more of allowance for this in the organization and in business, then I don't know how your, understanding of this, but I always felt people who would actually see this and show this kindness and give this space, then you want to give back so much more. So you actually get out, professionally out of this person so much more if you give them space to integrate.
Yeah, I feel like when we create more of these inclusive spaces where people can show up for all of who they are, they bring more of themselves too,
exactly.
To their work, to their families, and everyone wins. It's a win-win-win situation to allow to create that space for this evolved person to show up as their even fuller self, which is a beautiful thing.
Thank you so much, Jiezhen. That was a wonderful conversation today. To me, it's very meaningful, and that's why I actually wanted to talk specifically with you so that we kick off this new wave of Timeless Teachings interviews. We have been doing it for more than 3 years already. And I think we have listeners all the way from Canada to New Zealand. It's more than 20 countries, which has been really quite an amazing journey. And because probably also I am right now mama myself, so we're definitely going to include more maternity topics into the conversations. And we still keep talking about human potential and consciousness and wellness and well-being. Thank you for today. And to our dear audience, yes, I'm going to see you next time with another guest. Have an amazing several weeks. Feel free to share this episode with friends, subscribe to the podcast and YouTube channel, and follow us on social media. And remember, you are the master of your own life.